Watashi wa Catherine desu! My name is Catherine and thank you so much for joining me. I'm super happy to have you here. This is my first real speed build video for the Snowy Escape Pack and I am so excited to share this with you. I got really inspired by an image that I saw online when I was looking at some Japanese builds, and it had this pool and a whole bunch of platforms over the pool that could be used for walking. And I looked at that and I was like, you know what? We've got this new platform tool. I'm gonna start with that and I'm gonna see what comes out of this. I really like the way that my pool ended up looking, and so that was kind of the focal point of this entire thing, and I am so happy with the way that it turned out. I hope you guys like it too. As I mentioned before, this was sort of my first time really building with platforms. I had toyed around with them a little bit with this practice build of a Komorebi, and that one's up in my gallery now. It's under the gallery ID of Lady Alpha 001. So I was practicing a little bit of the platforms with the Komorebi, and they're a lot harder to get the hang of, I think, than I originally thought that they were. I had to do a lot of going back and forth on the levelings because I was trying to hold to a couple of very important rules. One rule that is extremely important in Japanese architecture is regarding the engawa. The engawa is a porch to a Japanese home. Oftentimes it's a wraparound porch. It is the transition space between your living and your outdoor space. And the rule of the engawa is that it has to be level with your home, so that way you're not going up or down to essentially get on the porch. So I was running into a lot of difficulty with that because at the front of the house I needed the engawa to match the space where you take off your shoes when you're coming in the house. But because it was a wraparound, that meant that on the back of this house, the engawa was not matching up to the floor level of the actual living spaces. So that required quite a bit of workaround. The other challenge that I found with this house was doing roofing. Doing the roofing was a little bit interesting because I had a lot of extra angles that I wasn't really anticipating having. And so for doing that, I actually was looking at the houses in the neighborhood around this one, and I noticed that they seem to have like a double roof in order to sort of give an extra lip to it. Overall, I am very happy with how this house turned out. The bathrooms are so much more spacious than I think I've ever actually built, so that was really cool. This is going to be the house that Catherine will live in, my MySim, when we do that Let's Play, which should be up on my channel probably the end of this week, or else it's going to be on Tuesday of next week. So do keep an eye out for that if it is something that you're interested in. Go ahead and hit the subscribe, but also hit the notifications. That way you will know when those things get posted. If you want to also, Catherine has some previous Let's Plays that we've done with her in order to just kind of see what kind of MySim we're starting with, because I'm taking my spellcaster to Komorebi and it's going to be so much fun. I really did build this house with Catherine in mind, so it is designed for a single sim or a couple sim. It is not designed for a family. So a lot of the spaces in here are very colorful because that's how she likes it, or that's how I like it. I don't know, it's my sim, whatever. So there is a good bit of color in here while also being in the same sort of vein as being a decluttered space, a space that is very neutral. So I'm actually pretty proud of how I blended the colors that we're gonna see coming up here. So far I am really enjoying the Snowy Escape Pack. I haven't rushed through it too much. I haven't played a ton of it, but there's a lot of features in here that I really love. And one of my favorite things, at least in regard to the building of it, is that all of these new windows and doors that we got, and boy howdy, we got so many of them. all of them match in their swatches. So I could change the color of any one of the windows and I can expect that all of the other options are gonna match too, which has always been a really big deal for me. I find that really frustrating. I think it was the tiny living pack that had a whole bunch of furniture that was all in these pretty wood tones, but none of the wood tones matched each other. So you really couldn't put it all together and expect it to go well. So I always found that really frustrating, and I'm very, very happy that in this, these windows and the doors all just match, and when they need to be changed, it's easy to change them all. So that was really cool. It's the same thing with the furniture too, like the couches and the tables and everything in the kitchen. It all just matches, and that is such a sweet thing as a builder. Because I built the pool and the platforms first, it needed a lot of little side tinkering. So as I started to put in some of the landscaping, I started to adjust that pool a little bit. We lightened up the edges, we put in a couple of trees, and one of them's a cherry blossom tree. So I put a bunch of the cherry blossom petals in the pool, so that way it was less of a pool and more of a fountain. So I thought that was a pretty neat workaround. And behind with there, we also had a pine tree that we put in, and there is a cherry tree out front as well. In this neighborhood, because it's constantly snowing, I don't think we're ever going to actually be able to see the leaves of those trees, which is kind of sad that we're not gonna be able to get those to go to fruition with this house, but that's okay. I'm still very excited for what we do have with it, and under the tree in the backyard, I actually ended up putting a yoga mat, so that way it made a lot of sense to be out there and just enjoying that space in a really sort of pensive, meditating way. We're about to move on to the dining area where the kotatsu is, and in here, I've noticed in some of my tours when it came to Japanese homes, the rooms with the kotatsus oftentimes had a ton of storage. So I really wanted a lot of things to like pack away the blankets and whatnot, because I had seen those on some of the tours that I had been watching. One of the tours that I had been watching made a special point of saying that these windows were lower set down, so that way when you were sitting at that kotatsu, you could just have a direct view outside without having that obscured. And that was really, really cool to think about, and I'm so glad that that was a window item that they chose to include in this pack. It just goes to show me that this was a pack where they tried carefully to get those cultural aspects correct and do it well the first time. So for me, that was really impressive, and I was very, very happy to have those lower windows, especially that I could get those lower windows down there and align all of the cabinets around it really well. So that was a really, I don't want to say rewarding experience, but it was nice to see my knowledge pay off in that regard. We are finally getting into the area of the build where we start to work in some color, and I'll tell you what, it had been killing me that this was so much just brown and white. And I was like, how am I gonna do this to add in some color here? So I put in this little half wall, it's not a half wall yet, but it gets there, and the entertainment center from Tiny Living, because I think that a lot of the more tiny storage solutions are a lot more along the lines of a more modern Japanese culture, with everything being so small and so clean and so uncluttered. So I really went with those Tiny Living items, and I think I'm going to be doing that a lot in my Japanese builds, particularly the ones that are more modern. For this one, I was really going for a balance between the modern being the part of the home that's interchangeable, but having that more classic, the sliding doors and the paper windows and, those more traditional features that have just gotten some updates. We are moving on to the upstairs bathroom, and this one I actually sectioned off into 3 separate rooms. So there is the actual shower room, there is the toilet room, and there is the sink area. And the sink area is what's going to have our washer dryer as well, so that is all kind of kept in the same space. It's pretty uncommon in Japanese homes, especially modern Japanese homes, to have both a washer and a dryer. If you're not drying your stuff outside, then your washing machine usually will do both a wash and a dry to save on space, because that's a lot of modern Japanese architecture, is how do we save that space. One of the other things about Japanese bathrooms, and this is one of the reasons why I split off the washing area, was that oftentimes is separate. It is pretty traditional for entire families to bathe together, so usually that entire room is going to be more or less a shower room that can fit everybody, which is, I really like the fact that that shower is just kind of randomly hanging there instead of in a contained space. I keep seeing the one from, I think it's Discover University, that's very similar to that, and I don't have Discover University yet. It's one of the main packs that I just don't, because frankly I can only choose to buy certain ones at certain times. So with not having that in a contained space, that makes it a lot more of that open room, and I'm really glad to finally have a piece that can do that, even though I don't have Discover University. The next most important thing that Catherine needed in her home was a little bit of an office space, and since I didn't really have much of a room for that upper hallway, that's where I ended up putting the stuff that she would need, because she's going to need the computer to buy the skis and to buy the climbing equipment and all of that stuff, which is really frustrating because none of the rental lots in Komorebi have a computer on them. So you can't order those things when you're actually out on vacation. You have to get them before you go. So if I just put a computer in the house now, then that's all taken care of, and it's great. That being said, now that we've got, her office, her living space, whatever, one of the big things that she still needs but we're missing is more of a garden area. So I'm not quite sure how I'm gonna do that, or if that's even a thing that I want to do, because she has enough money that I don't think we need to keep up with the gardening too much. So let me know in the comments what you think, if we should try and incorporate a garden or incorporate a potions room, so that way we can continue to use her spellcaster abilities to get us some more of those like mood potions, I guess, to keep things a little bit on the happier side. We are coming up to the end of the build here, and this is again me having a lot of trouble with platforms and the corresponding ways of making them work together. So I'm just trying to get all these little details leveled. I'm trying to get the Engawa set. I'm trying to just kind of finish off our little details like these platform paints. Platform paints? I don't know if that's what they're called, but that's what I'm calling them. Anyways, thank you so much for joining me, guys. Enjoy the screenshots. You can always download this from my gallery, LadyAlpha001. You can also find me on Twitter at KatherineKiwi1. I look forward to seeing you guys next time. Thank you so much, and catch you on the flip side. Bye!